It is the Final Word Cricket Podcast. I'm Adam Collins. The guy down the other end of the Zoom screen, as always, is Geoff Lemon. It is the morning after the evening before, if you like, with New Zealand taking out the inaugural World Test Championship down at Southampton. What a lovely thing that was. I felt quite invested in the whole thing, Geoff, towards the end. Not so much about the result, but across the 2 years, we've been at so much of it. And in addition to the test matches we've been at, we've covered loads of them through this podcast week to week. So it was a nice thing. And that's going to be the theme of our episode today, chatting to Phil Walker, the editor and chief of Wisdom Cricket Monthly, talking about how we can improve it into the future. But yeah, reflecting on what's just been, it was a wonderful celebration when they were on the field of the best of Test cricket.
It felt good having all of this correspondence from happy New Zealanders, who don't get that many opportunities to be happy as it relates to their cricket. They've had some sadness in their time, and there aren't that many New Zealanders in the world, so quite a sizable percentage of the population has been in touch with us over the last 24 hours to send emails or leave comments or whatever it was. And also a lot of our Indian viewers and listeners were also really happy that New Zealand got the win. They were saying, disappointing, but we like New Zealand, we respect them, we feel good about them having got something to celebrate. And it's hard to imagine there being a similar response if, for instance, Australia had won the World Test Championship.
Yes, that's fair to say. Hypercourse, our old mate John Leather, made the point on Twitter that there have been three great finals in England in a row now. So the 2017 Women's 50 Over World Cup, 2019 Men's World Cup, and then the World Test Championship. So England's been a great venue for three consecutive finals. That won't always be the case.
But they shouldn't play cricket there because it rains, Adam. How dare there was a conspiracy by the ICC to schedule it there because it was giving New Zealand a home ground advantage, apparently. Has anyone who said that watched a Test match in New Zealand over the last 10 years? They're all like 600 to 650, and then New Zealand bowl out some visiting team for bugger all because they're too tired. Like, they play on flatter decks than we do in Australia. They just look green, and then they go to England, and it was a beautiful bowling display.
Thoroughly deceptive, isn't it? You see the pitch on day one in New Zealand, and sometimes they deck around, but a lot of the time they don't. There was some... There's some bits and pieces we missed during the week, Geoff, on the Daily Show. One of those we shouldn't have missed. It was that the great Vinoo Mankad, one of the spirit animals, you could say, of the Final Word, was elevated to ICC Hall of Fame status, which was a wonderful thing. It's rare that I find myself nodding along with Sunil Gavaskar on commentary, but some of the comments that he made about Mankad were spot on. Not only the contribution that he made, but the fact that the way his name's used in a pejorative sense. We celebrate the Mankad, and we think it's a wonderful thing that he's got a dismissal named after him. But I absolutely respect the other side of it, that running out the non-striker should be called exactly that and not linked to his name. But nevertheless, this wasn't about that. This was about being one of the truly great early all-rounders.
It's more that that's the only thing people talk about when he's a guy who made two double centuries batting for India, as well as being a prodigious bowler, someone who took ridiculous numbers of wickets, someone who was so influential at a time when it was hard graft for India in their first couple of decades. Like most test teams, their first couple of decades aren't a lot of fun. And he was somebody who did tremendous things. Took 5-wicket hauls on 8 occasions, 162 wickets over 2,000 test runs, played 44 matches, which, you couldn't rack up those numbers in 3 years like an England player might now. It took years and years and years of touring and graft to be able to get that many appearances for India. So he's someone who does deserve the respect for what he did on the field.
It could have only been made better, Geoff, I'm not sure if you're watching this exact delivery, but Ash went into the attack late yesterday. And first ball, he pulled out, and it looked just for the briefest moment as though he was going to run out Devon Conway. That would have been a perfect full stop on the celebration of Vinoo Mankad through the week, but Ashwin didn't. And the Twitter comments were brilliant. You can imagine what they were like at the time. It's like he should just run out all 10 New Zealand players when he's bowling, and that would have made me perfectly satisfied.
Imagine that. Imagine he does an Anil Kumble, takes all 10, but they're all run out at the non-strikers.
We should be so lucky. Sadder news that came out this week from Australia is that Keith Bradshaw, the long-serving chief executive at the SACA, is very, very ill. There was an update from the SACA this week just explaining how ill he is. He's taken a leave of absence for cancer that spread to his brain. He was made a SACA Life member during the week, honorary life member, which is reserved for those who have made a gigantic contribution. He certainly has. You think about the way that Adelaide Oval is thought of in the global cricketing consciousness. That's in no small part due to the ambition of Keith Bradshaw. Of course, he was the boss at the MCC before that. It's hard to think of like sort of an Australian coming in and playing such an influential role in an establishment like the MCC, but he did so as well at Lord's. So we wish him our absolute best here at the Final Word, and hopefully he finds a way to the other side of this and is able to return to his post, because he's been a giant of South Australian cricket over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, this is a story where, Keith Bradshaw's cancer's been dogging him for a dozen years, a little bit more, and over that time, he's still been able to achieve all that he's been able to achieve in South Australia, and with the Adelaide Oval redevelopment and all of the rest of it, he's managed to hold it at bay. But it's coming back very hard. So all of our best wishes and love to Keith Bradshaw and his family. And I know that a huge number of people who work at the SACA or who are related to cricket in South Australia, or football in South Australia as well, are really hurting because of this. He's someone that they care deeply about. So our best to you all.